Snooker's Pied Piper, Barry Hearn, has revolution on his mind. From next season, at the majority of tournaments on the calendar, the first round of each event will feature all of the world's 128 players.
This represents a massive change in terms of the protectionism that's in snooker, where the top 16 have seeded through to effectively the last 32 in most competitions. It's a huge advantage, but we're making major strides to give equal opportunity to all players, whether you're a first-year rookie or a 5 times world champion. Every player will always look at a situation and ask one question: how does this affect me? My job is to say, what's best for the game?
I've worked hard for the last 7 years to get to number 8 in the world, or number 7, whatever it may be. Seems like you're just going to be back to square one. It's a step backwards in my opinion.
I'd prefer it to stay as it is, because for me it's better for me. I understand it might be fair for everyone else, but I'm not everyone else, I'm me, and I'm in the top 16, so I'd like it to stay as it is.
If you were inventing a new sport and you were saying this is the fairest way, I understand that, because you're going from zero, but there's a lot of people who have worked hard, put lots of hours in over the last 10, 15, 20 years even for some people, to get where they are now, and that seems to be taken away from them very quickly.
I will wait for you.
For those outside the top 16, this decision could be life-changing. At the moment, players like Matthew Selt, the world number 44, and Jack Lazowski, the world 40, can only dream of playing at the Masters. But that dream could become a reality next season if the new proposals are implemented.
For people that want to get to the top of the game, I think it's a massive, massive step for them to be able to get up very fast and get into these great tournaments that people see. People that are in certain brackets higher than me are not taking to it very well, and it's understandable. But as a game to grow, you need to be on a level playing field, a fairer playing field.
It's like I've got to win a tournament just to get to a tournament. I've already got to win 2 games just to get there. So I never, I've got no chance to come to the Masters. So I don't know, you feel like a bit of an outsider. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different faces at venues, which I think is what Barry wants, and I hope there is. I like seeing new players.
There are 11 major events, ranking events. Of those, 8 next season will be on the 128 basis, and 3 will be on the old basis because the sponsors and the broadcasters didn't want to change their contract. We acknowledge that. When that contract comes up for renewal, it will be changed and they won't be given the choice. But coming back to the 128 draw, there's a risk element here. The risk is losing household names before the tournament takes place in some far-flung country where the broadcaster doesn't see 1, 2, 3 or more of the top names.
This is the biggest problem that I see with the whole situation, is we're looking for a tournament. There's some tournaments where they want to guarantee that the top 16 players turn up there. Well, you can't guarantee that the top 32 are going to turn up in this one. I'm not saying that the players lesser down, are not great players, but they're certainly less well known. And it's obvious that you put bums on seats with the top players, so that's another anomaly that you come across.
The move to 128 has received universal acclaim from everybody in the world, all our broadcast partners, because we're suddenly being looked upon as a real game, not a boys' club, not a little group of players sharing out, divvying up the money.
However, for some of the world's best players, the decision is not all about the money. There's a genuine concern that the first round of tournaments could be played amongst a rabbit warren of cubicles far away from the paying public and the television cameras.
I don't particularly want to be playing in front of 5 people again. That was the reason I practiced so hard to get out of that and get through it. So it'd be disappointed if that did happen, but hopefully everyone will be back at the venues.
What we're talking about here is playing qualifiers and I know this from Jimmy White's point of view, that you're playing qualifiers in what you can only describe as squash courts. That doesn't favour the better players. The better players need to be out there in front of a big crowd, the TV cameras, and when the adrenaline is going, and that is a test for any player to be able to do it on the big stage.
There is, however, a considerable level of support for the proposals from some of the players within the top 16.
If I can't come through like the 128 scenario, flat system where I might be playing someone ranked outside the top 64 first, I don't deserve to win tournaments.
From a top player's point of view, if you keep winning and that, then you'll be fine and you'll win the prize money. And the idea is that if we progress to the last 2s, last 16s, then we'll be on guaranteed more money than what we were in the first place. So if you're a top player and you progress and you get far in tournaments, then you'll be rewarded.
This for me is the landmark decision that should have been taken years and years ago. For the first time ever in snooker, the top players, once this system is introduced, will be able to look everyone in the eye and say they are the top players because they've had to beat everybody else.
Unsurprisingly, the last word tonight has to go to Mr. Hearn.
We're either going to be a boys' club for a few chosen players, or we're going to be a global sport open to everyone to participate, built solely on ability. And I won't be moved on this. It's a great thing about ownership. I won't be moved. I'm going to listen to everybody. I'm going to take into account everyone's opinions, and then I'm going to do what's right for the game.
So there, John Parrott's joined us. We heard your opinion on all of this. Steve, could this yet be blocked by the playing membership, and if so, when?
It could be, of course, if enough of the playing membership decide they don't like it. I doubt that will be the case. And it's going to boil down to the people who think that they deserve to be further through into an event the following year on what they've done in previous years, and the ones that don't think that needs to be done or that's unfair. And it will split views. It splits views of commentators, analysts. It splits views of players. Whether they think because you've worked hard you deserve to be further through in the event, or that's unfair, that you should start all at 128 and that's the only fair way.
It's a brave new world, Ken. And what do you see as potentially the most significant advantages of a new system like this?
Well, just from listening to Barry and some of the other members, they definitely think that it's going to be a fair system, that more sponsors will come in and there'll be more money around for players, and it'll certainly give players, particularly the Chinese players and players around the world, it will give them a better chance of actually coming through a lot quicker rather than going through 4 or 5 matches before they actually play a top 16 player. The system at the moment really stops them from doing that and stops them progressing very, very quickly. So from that sort of point of view, it will be better for them. It's quite interesting to hear actually top 16 players actually in favour of it, because you would think that they would want their protection. So from that point of view, it is quite interesting. But as Steve said, you know, it could be split. It will go to a vote, obviously, and then we'll see how it goes.
John, I know where you stand on this. Obviously, we heard it in the... A big logistical challenge for World Snooker, because you need a venue or even 2 venues big enough to cope with 128 men.
Well, Barry doesn't seem to think that's the problem. I mean, look at, as I say, I was asked if I was still a top 16 player. I wouldn't like this. I wouldn't like this at all. I'm a top 16 player because I've earned the right to be a top 16. I've put the hours in, I've won all my matches. I have a ranking because I've earned it. No one's come up and give it me, and I started off at scratch. When I turned professional, I was exactly the same as all the other players. I wasn't in the top 16. I got there because I was good enough to get there.
OK, well, this debate is going to run and run all the way to the World Championship, I suspect. But for the time being, this event, the Masters, and indeed the World Championship, remain untouched. It will be top 16 who'll be invited to play in this one and will qualify by right for the World Championship.